First things first, if somebody saves your life and they have a pet bear that actually sleeps in their house and is completely peaceful, then your first reaction to them should not be suspicion, but the strong wish to become friends with these people. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat, and today I would like to talk about The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid, which is also the book of the month for November for the Enchanted Book Club. Évike lives in a pagan village in the woods. As a side note, the trees actually walk by themselves, so literally everything is infused with magic in this world, and it's quite fascinating. But Évike lives in this pagan village, and she is literally the only girl without any powers. So when the Woodsmen, a specific unit of soldiers from the king, arrive to collect a sacrifice, she's the one that gets thrown to the wolves, essentially. Even though the wolves and this are the girls from this village and not the woodsmen, but worry about it when you actually read the book. On their way to the capital, the group gets attacked and only 2 people survive. And now Évike and the one woodsman, Gaspar, have to make do with each other to survive. En route, their mission also changes slightly when it becomes clear that Gaspar is the disgraced prince and he could actually use Évike's help to protect himself against his power-hungry half-brother. While they travel together, their initial loathing slowly turns into a bond of sorts and later on into more. I'm still not convinced I'm pronouncing any of the names correctly, and that being said, there is a pronunciation guide, not a glossary, but a pronunciation guide at the end of this book, but I could have used a note about its existence at the beginning, because by that point I had already memorized these names, probably the wrong pronunciation. Évike is not so far off from how it's properly pronounced, but there were other things and I was like, okay, I would not have guessed this pronunciation from what I'm seeing on the page, but then again I don't speak Hungarian, so no big surprise there. Anyway, if you read the book, be prepared to just jump to the back to maybe figure out how you might want to memorize this name actually sounding. As for characters, virtually every character you meet has shades of grey and flaws, and that's a great thing because none of the characters fulfills a cliche or anything. So Évike, for one, is angry, bullied, has plenty of flaws, and she has claws. And it's a really interesting character to read. Sometimes not necessarily a likable character, but a really interesting one. As for the love story, as usual, I have a hard time imagining that people who hated each other this much, even though it was not on a personal level and just very much like, oh, you're a pagan, oh, you're a woodsman, I still have a hard time believing that people that hate each other this much can form such a bond. But then I guess I'm just not the audience for enemy to lovers. I will say this much about the love story though, it's not a sudden change. They come to blows, they argue a whole lot about virtually everything, including politics and religion. And it's not a sudden flip from like, oh my god, you're so hot, I suddenly forget everything that you have done to my people. Évike does have a thing with like, oh my god, I'm so horny for this guy, but that doesn't make her lose her mind completely or anything. And it still takes them a decent amount of time before their tenuous relationship becomes something else. So the blurb for the book kind of makes it sound like the love story was the center of the story. But that's not how I read the book. I mean, the love story takes up a good part of it, yes. But I think at the center was actually the conflict between faiths. They have on one hand the king, which is kind of representative of Christianity and that religion either absorbing other religions or eradicating them. There is a group that some of Évike's relatives belong to that is a stand-in for Jews. And then there are all the pagans. And there are different kinds among the pagans. I couldn't tell you which pagans in this book are supposed to represent which religion in our world, but there are several of those as well. So virtually everybody, or everybody of importance that Évike encounters, has magic. And it's different depending on what belief you belong to and what faith you adhere to. And even by the end, I was still not sure how some of the magic actually worked or where it came from. Is it because the gods are real? Is your faith the deciding factor for what you can do and how much you can do? And I'm really confused about that. But then I'm not sure the book was actually intending to explain the origins of any of this. It's just a given. This world is full of magic and creatures and monsters as well. A side note for the monsters. If your horse is scared of something that looks otherwise harmless, maybe if you're in a forest that is trying to kill you, you should take notice. You can trust your horse that far. So while the first half of the book mostly deals with Évike and Gaspar and their travels, there's a whole lot more happening in the second half once they get to the capital and other things kick off. And maybe it was actually a bit much, because I found that even though Évike has to suffer through quite a bit, I didn't feel much about it in the second half. Which is a shame, because otherwise this was really interesting. The world was intricate and confusing and new. So overall, I think this was quite an interesting read, and I would give it a discount. And if you like retellings, if you like magic, if you like interesting worlds full of monsters and enemies to lovers, then this might be the book for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to help the channel out, and let me know in the comments whether you've read the book or whether you enjoy enemies to lovers. Bye folks!